Sorry guys for the fast speed of the previous version of this video. I have corrected it now. This is being reborn as Sasuke Uchiha Part 1. Hope you guys like it. Chapter 1, V.1C.1 Rei. There is no grand light. No holy presence to welcome one's soul after death. No door, or stairway to heaven. What would one expect after death, but the unfortunate reality that one only has the life they are given, and that is it. Nobody exists on purpose. Nobody belongs anywhere. Everybody's gonna die. Our words one can only conclude is true, and just as depressing as it is also freeing as well. The greatest of freedoms one can acclaim as their own. Not existing on purpose, not belonging anywhere, and having the one and only fate shared among all those whom are living. Death. The inevitable end, destruction, ruin, and any other word that be ascribed to the natural state of the universe, in which entropy rules supreme. But despite that, the value of life, in on itself, is life. If I am to live again. A disembodied voice of sorts spoke, or seemingly spoke to the nameless void. If I am to be again, to once again fall into not being. I shall. The next moment, a shift or disturbance within this realm of nothingness is felt. The disembodied being, unaware of its new situation, can only be blind to its dilemma. Out of the crack, there is light, and from this light, the being is sucked into, forced into being again. It is a rather calm night, or what appears to be calm, for there is a small disturbance amongst people within a place that resembled a hospital. A man, clean-shaven, middle-aged, black hair and eyes, awaited outside of another room where there was noises heard from within. Next to the man, is a boy seemingly around the age of 5, with similar features to the older man he stands next to. After a while, the hustle and bustle calms down as everything seems to be in order, and a man, that looks like a doctor, comes out calmly. The birth was successful, whilst your wife and now new son are both seemingly in perfect wife. I do however suggest that we conduct a few more tests and keep them both here. The birthing process was not an easy one, it would seem. Stopping for a bit, the doctor then says, "I am sure you are aware of the procedure." The other man, with child, responds, "I do." His face didn't portray or give away any emotion he may have felt or is feeling as of this moment. Just a moment then. "Your son shall be moved to another area for now, while the mother is escorted to another room for some rest," the doctor said, before heading off in another direction, seemingly busy. After a few hours, within the hospital, in one particular room, there happens to be a small family of 3. "I am glad you are fine, Makoto." The middle-aged man spoke towards the woman, whom is lying in bed. The woman, identified as Makoto, nodded her head back. "I am." "Where is my new child then?" Makoto asked. Any second now the man was interrupted as a nurse came into the room, holding a bundle within her arms. "Mr. and Mrs. Uchiha, here is your child." The nurse came over, placing the bundle down into the welcoming arms of Makoto. "Fugaku. He is beautiful," Makoto said, now identifying the man in the room with herself as Fugaku. The nurse soon after left, leaving the family to get better acquainted with the new member of their family. "Itakai. This is your brother, Sasuke. Sasuke is his name," Makoto said, where Fugaku and herself had already decided upon what the name of their child would be. Whilst Makoto herself doesn't hold or share love between herself and her husband, that didn't mean they didn't have their own arrangement. "My little brother." Itakai gazed upon the now sleeping form of his new family member, upon which activated something within himself that he may have never felt before. The family of 3, now 4, would soon enough leave the hospital with the okay from their doctors telling them that everything is working in perfect condition. Makoto, the mother, safe after the birthing process, whilst the newly christened Sasuke is also given a clear bill of health. The view, or perspective from being but a mere child, is interesting. Disorienting, most certainly, but also something totally new, while at the same time having a small amount of familiarity. Experiencing reincarnation was most certainly not on the agenda. Thought the small babe that lay within their cot, only being a few days old. This world I have also been reborn into as well. Never could I imagine such a thing. Again, the young babe, whose eyes, even though of a baby that showed innocence, or at least the fake it as such, held intelligence and wisdom beyond what a child their age should. Not bothering to inspect himself, the child already surmised that they are male, but there was something else that he had been trying to do since he came to Chakra. The universe that, from memory, comes under the name of Naruto is where I am currently located. If the decoration, language of people I have heard from and overall appearance of people is any indication, and to be reborn as Sasuke. The possibilities, while endless, are actually terrifying, as while this universe isn't hardcore dark, that didn't mean it wasn't inherently worse than his previous life. Superpowered, magic ninjas weren't a thing in my previous life, or at least it wasn't something real. Sasuke. There is my child. How adorable you are. A woman entered his new, humble abode, whom is in fact his brand new mother. Sasuke could only look at Mikoto strangely, still unused to his new environment. Enough of these useless thoughts. My situation, as unexpected as it is, shouldn't come in the way of what I should now start to consider. You seem relatively fine. You are so quiet for a baby. Mikoto adopted a worried expression upon her face, as she gazed upon her child. Sitting here and hoping for some sort of gold finger, cheat or any other variable that may explain why I am here is useless. Sasuke continued to think to himself, as his mind is brand new and ready to be properly developed. Maybe I should have you get a checkup with a doctor. I do still happen to have some help for something like this. Mikoto looked into her child's eyes once more, coming to a decision that she wouldn't, as there didn't seem to be any other problem than Sasuke being very reserved. Checking his physical form, Mikoto was unable to feel anything as of yet. No crying, no indication he was or is hungry, or even any indication that he was feeling the need to be close to her. Even Itachi, with his current self and all, was still very attached to me as a baby. Mikoto thought to herself, again fretting over something that should be logically seen as something abnormal, but otherwise didn't seem to be harmful in any capacity. Mikoto knew not what to think of this any longer and decided to just spend some time with her new child, knowing that this is still probably the best course of action. For Sasuke, however, he was slightly annoyed. For every opportunity now he got, he would try and start messing with chakra. Stupid, maybe even dangerous, but a necessary evil if he is to get a head start above the current and future competition he is to come across. If even only for his survival. I can't be taking chances now, even if I have a general idea about what Mikoto's current capabilities are. If she just so happens to have some concept or minor ability related to detecting chakra, then it could alert her. What she would do after with that information is up in the air. Sasuke knew there are too many variables when it came to this. Being unsure, he decided to take a very careful and precautious approach. Meaning, he will just have to deal with the mundane and boring activities that a baby has to do. Not that trying to manipulate and control chakra isn't boring in on itself. However, greater control means a greater advantage from the start. Sasuke knew of his advantages, as with his future knowledge he could use and abuse to make himself the strongest. And possibly even achieve something, while not impossible in this world, very improbable. Here we are. Mikoto continued to talk to Sasuke as well, for communicate with children helps them develop faster in terms of communication skills. The origin of chakra itself is a bit iffy, but it goes something like this. On Earth, humans didn't have chakra until Homura and Hagoromo Otsutsuki were born with it, which was a result of their mother Kaguya eating their planet's chakra fruit from the god tree. Hagoromo spread chakra to others through a practice called ninshu, intending to create peace by using the chakra to connect people's spiritual energy so that they would understand one another without even talking. However, the people did not use chakra in the way Hagoromo hoped, instead using it to connect their inner spiritual and physical energies. They needed their inner chakra to amplify and weaponize it, creating what is now known as ninjutsu. Chakra is a substance native to life forms on some planets. It is an energy that is able to do miraculous and magical things, with which Sasuke would be able to tap into and do many things with. Starting from his current position, he would need to work hard in order to make sure his current potential is not wasted. I don't really buy the whole idea that Hagoromo actually gave chakra to everyone, and instead believe that it existed within humans before, but was unlocked through his teachings. Supposedly, chakra existed on this planet, probably leading the Otsutsuki to planting one of those monstrous trees here to absorb said chakra. Produced within and manipulated by organs such as the heart, the energy circulates throughout the body in a network called the chakra pathway system, which is similar to the cardiovascular system. Groups such as Shinobi have learned to generate more chakra and release it outside their bodies through pressure points called tenketsu in order to perform jutsu. Going off this logic, Sasuke worked off of this and started to spend weeks working on his chakra manipulation and control, whilst training his body as much as he could as well. Well, training is a pretty strong word for wiggling around like a worm that has been pulled out of the dirt, fearing for its life. Chakra is created when two more primal energies, known collectively as one's stamina, are molded together. Physical energy is collected from each of the body's cells and can be increased through training, stimulants, and exercise. Spiritual or mental energy is derived from the mind's consciousness and can be increased through studying, meditation, and experience. These two energies becoming more powerful will in turn make the created chakra more powerful. Therefore, practicing a technique repeatedly will build up experience, increasing one's spiritual energy, and thus allowing more chakra to be created. As a result, a person should be able to do that same technique with more power. This same cycle applies for physical energy, except the individual needs to increase their endurance instead. Some unique individuals have substantial potential that enables them to exponentially increase their chakra reserves in a relatively short amount of time. One such individual being myself, with the other being Naruto, that is, or other such individuals that have some level of plot armor. Sasuke, knowing his new potential as Indra's reincarnate, knows that he can abuse this small detail to his advantage. Maybe even leading to developing the Rinnegan early on myself. There are a whole host of things in this world, which I am more than pleased to discover. I do wonder about certain individuals, however, and my effect on the world at large. Creator's thoughts. _ID. Question. 1. System. 2. No system. Both scenarios, I have thought up of methods or ways for Sasuke to become OP either way. Comment. 35 comments. Vote. 1 left. Chapter 2, V.1C.2 Re2. Mikoto Uchiha, a fair-skinned woman with long, straight black hair with long bangs hanging on either side of her face to roughly frame her cheeks and black eyes. She wore a brown blouse similar to the purple one she wore, a dark purple skirt, blue Shinobi sandals. Mikoto was a very gentle and kind woman, but could also be stern and strict when she needed to be. She loved her sons deeply and knew how to help them with their problems. Mikoto cared for and also held high respect for her husband as well, and understood the importance of his position as the Uchiha clan leader, and was a dutiful and loyal wife to him. However, being a dutiful and loyal wife may be one thing, considering she had never really wanted to be together with the man in much capacity. Her care for Fugaku is out of respect for him and his character. However, it didn't make her love him in any more of a romantic way. After Sasuke, I do believe that there shall be no more intimate interactions between the two of us. Mikoto held no position on this either way. She has upheld her duty, and will continue to be dutiful and loyal, even if the love is only of a familial connection. Both Sasuke and Itachi are both my children after all, not only Fugaku's. That reminds me. I am taking Sasuke today to meet with Kushina. Mikoto near face palmed, as lately her thoughts seemed to be drifting more and more towards the strange behavior of her child Sasuke. Forgetting these things due to her worry. I think it would be nice to start having him socialize a bit more. It had been a few months, approximately 5 months since Sasuke's birth, and she had been keeping a close eye on her child. Nothing seemed to be out of place, but his behavior simply raised some red flags that something is wrong, for she even took him to a doctor after deluding herself that nothing is wrong. It would be about a month after Sasuke's birth she brought him in, but the doctor, whilst also saying it is unusual, didn't think it of anything bad. After all, the medical techniques of their time is advanced enough and good enough to identify most physical problems. Maybe I am just overthinking it. Mikoto doubted herself often, and gave in to those doubts another month after that incident. Still, I have caught him making strange movements that, while not unnatural, are definitely not movements a child his age should be doing. Mikoto for now threw her concerns away, assured in knowing that Sasuke is perfectly healthy, if not more healthy than most other children in comparison. At least he is fine physically, I guess. Where is my little Sasuke then? Mikoto projected her voice, knowing that her child is actually more intelligent than most other children. She didn't immediately think of him as some genius or anything like that, and neither did her husband either. To judge a baby, a child in their weak and vulnerable state like this would be a miscalculation. Once the baby is able to communicate better, only then would Mikoto be able to determine whether or not his intelligence is in fact above the norm. Looking around her home, Mikoto spots and picks Sasuke up effortless. He didn't even put up any resistance at all. It is kind of good that I can leave him to his own devices at least. Don't have to worry about him eating something he shouldn't. There you are. You really make me wonder sometimes, you know that, right? Mikoto questioned, as if Sasuke could understand, and for some reason Mikoto somewhat believed that he could. She wasn't too far off from the truth, as Sasuke had to learn an entirely new language, as while he indulged in foreign entertainment, it didn't mean he went through and learned Japanese just from watching anime, reading manga or other forms of entertainment. No, Sasuke spent most of his time with Mikoto learning, deciphering and piecing together the language as best he could. He could even confidently say that he is at least able to near fully understand completely. All thanks to her desire to chat with me. Sasuke thought to himself, staring at the woman, whom is quite nice to gaze upon. Right. There is nothing more for us to do here. Sorry for not being a very sociable mother, Sasuke. I only have very few friends outside of the Uchiha clan. Even then. Mikoto had this look on her face that seemed to have some level of sadness. Right. She isn't a character, but a real person with real emotions, or at least that is my perceived reality as of my rebirth. Sasuke understood for the most part, not being someone to have too many close people to himself in his past life. Well, that doesn't matter now. For I have my cute little Sasuke. Mikoto giggled seeing the look Sasuke was giving her, but most of the time she just chalked this up to coincidence than Sasuke actually understanding. Leaving the Uchiha family compound, Mikoto would find herself within the village known as Konoha. The village she is now a retired ninja of. Still. To be here in this foreign, but familiar world is something else. Sasuke thought to himself, as he is a lot more energetic than a normal child. For he had been practicing non-stop, with heavy determination, massive talent, and passion for his new world. Sasuke had been able to get to a point that within a week or two, he would be able to start walking. Not bad for a 5-month-old baby. Taking into consideration that children graduate from the academy at 5 and can punch holes through buildings, it wouldn't and probably shouldn't surprise him as much at his progress. Oh my! The surprised face of a rather beautiful woman with fiery red hair and violet-colored eyes appeared in front of him. Was it a girl? The redhead was holding her very own pregnant belly, whilst insulting Sasuke. Did she just call me a girl? Sasuke thought, his eyes directed straight towards the woman known as Kushina Uzumaki. Give a small laugh before answering, Mikoto replied. It's a boy. So cute. Kushina's smiling face was reflected within Sasuke's eyes as he glared in a rather cute manner pertaining to his appearance. What's your name? It's Sasuke. Mikoto responded for Sasuke, whom very much looked cute to the two women looking down upon him. I'll show you two, wait a minute. It was at this moment that Sasuke had a brilliant idea, whereupon he may be able to steal or borrow something of value. Let's see if I can somehow get into the Namikaze Uzumaki household so I can get my grubby little baby hands on one of the Hiraishin seals. Oh. So he was named after the father of the third Hokage. Another woman, older, came up beside Kushina and said this. Oh. It is by Wako Sarutabi. The third Hokage's wife. Sasuke identified the other woman. Yes, so that he will grow up to be a strong and fine shinobi. Mikoto replied with some level of pride herself. I guess Mikoto seems to have some level of affection for the village, and it probably stems from her education. Whatever it may be, I am not even sure if I am going to stay around and even become a so-called ninja. Sasuke had a few plans in mind in relation to stuff like that. You will be giving birth soon too, right, Kushina? Mikoto turned her head upwards towards Kushina and asked. You should pick a name in advance. Mikoto said this with a smile, glad for her friend. I already have. Kushina pointed towards herself. Leaning in towards Sasuke, Kushina says. If it is a boy, his name shall be Naruto. If it is a girl. Kushina pondered a bit before answering. It shall be Naruto. You'll be classmates, Sasuke, so be friends, okay? Kushina started to pat his head. I would be lying if I said I didn't enjoy some head pats or rubs. Sasuke thought to himself. Wait. I am no cat. And she called me a girl. Sasuke again, in mock anger, showed a pointed glare towards Kushina, whom seemed nonchalant. So cute. Kushina exclaimed, mistaking Sasuke's look for some form of interest or positive emotional connection. Making another face, Kushina silently whispers to Mikoto. By the way, does it really hurt? Kushina's face screamed of anxiety, and some levels of fear. I really want to see if I can finagle my way into getting one of those fancy Hirashin seals, but it would seem that there is no. Sasuke is interrupted as he retunes into the conversation between Mikoto and Kushina. So there's actually something that scares you, Kushina? Mikoto asked, her face having a teasing look. I'm surprised. Sasuke, as if time is slowing down, starts to see Baiwako going in for the hook and drag, to take Kushina away to the location she no doubt is going in for retreat as she prepares to birth her child. Now is my chance. I will grab onto Kushina and dare not let go for the life of me. I will have my way. So, Mother Luck be on my side and allow me some level of protagonist plot armor to kick in and grant me some reason or excuse to stay with Kushina, if only for a small bit, until I get my hands on one of those Hirashin seals. Sasuke, moving along with his plan, jumps out of Mikoto's rather relaxed hold and caught a hold of Kushina, easily positioning and leveraging himself against her being. On instinct, Kushina is forced to hold on to Sasuke as Baiwako stops her movement, and the three women are bewildered by this bizarre occurrence. Does he do this often? Kushina is a bit confused, so are the other two. This is a first. Even Mikoto is confused now, as this sort of reaction differed from the way Mikoto saw this parting was going to go. Come now, Sasuke. You shouldn't. However, to everyone's surprise, Sasuke would hold on tighter on Kushina. Strange child he is. Baiwako said, seeing peculiarities. Sasuke. At this point, Mikoto had grown sort of used to his antics and could kind of get a sense or feel for what Sasuke was like, even as a baby. This time, she could sense for some reason, her child wanted to stay with Kushina. So what now? It seems like the cute guy doesn't want to let go. Kushina, stuck between a rock and a hard place, knows that there is some rather important business to get to. Mikoto. I am afraid that Kushina and myself have some important business. Whilst Baiwako was explaining a little bit to Mikoto, Sasuke was putting in all the moves and stops possible to get Kushina more malleable to his presence. Specifically so she could have him around herself, if only for a little while longer, so he could possibly have a chance at achieving his goal. Come on, lady. Didn't you say I was cute, and you want your future child to be friends with me? Put in some work now, and I may consider befriending the idiot known as Naruto in the future. Sasuke was thinking inwardly. However, on the outside he is using the infamous puppy dog eyes technique. Why are you looking at me like that? Kushina, for the life of her, couldn't imagine that she would be affected by the technique as such that she would succumb to the little child's desires without even knowing what his desires were. I don't think. Kushina tried to explain, but Sasuke was unfazed. Instead, his determination had only become stronger after spending 5 months, mind-numbingly as a baby, having to retrain himself and his body to do even the most mundane of tasks. Easily enough, Kushina caved. Clearing her throat, Kushina speaks up as Baiwako finishes. And that is why we should be going now. Now if you would excuse Kushina and myself, but we have to. Mikoto. Kushina's voice overcut Baiwako's, drawing Baiwako's and Mikoto's attention towards herself. It would seem that little Sasuke here wants to come. You wouldn't mind if he did, right? Kushina gave Baiwako a look. I don't think that would be appropriate. Baiwako said. Mikoto didn't know what to think, as it would seem that Sasuke was getting in the way of some sort of high-level, official business. Kushina then reveals to Mikoto something that she probably shouldn't, but Sasuke gave her the push to divulge this to her best friend. This is a massive secret, but it should be fine to tell you. It should be all right, right Baiwako? Kushina gave her own pleading look towards Baiwako. The rest was history. Comment. 22 comments. Vote. 1 left. Chapter 3, V.1C.3 It worked. Is anime logic at work? Is my plot armor coming through for me? Sasuke had many thoughts, but in the end, the process mattered not, for the results are in. Taken away, further away and meeting up with several people, Sasuke relented and went back towards Mikoto, making sure to not sleep just yet. He hadn't even seen the fourth Hokage, Minato no Mikaze, yet. Kushina wasn't exactly given permission or anything, but it wasn't like Biwako could actually stop her from revealing to Mikoto the details of what is going on. It also isn't like Mikoto isn't already aware of the severity of the situation. The information given as well is very important due to the fact of what it pertains to. The Kyuubi, the fourth Hokage, the current Jinchuriki, being Kushina, and the process of everything going to happen because she is now pregnant with child. Really? After all this time, and only now you tell me of these things? Mikoto said, whilst holding on to the wide-awake Sasuke. She is kind of sad, but at the time she also understands that it probably wasn't entirely her decision to begin with. Giving an awkward laugh, Kushina responds. Yeah, sorry about that, but there is all this silly politics and all. Really not my forte, but that doesn't matter, as it would seem that little Sasuke here had given me the courage to push through with telling you. To be honest with you, I wanted a friend to talk to and share with these current problems and all. Having really no one I am close to talk with is kind of. Kushina left off. I understand. Mikoto gave Kushina some comfort, understanding that this is kind of hard to deal with. So you are secretly the wife to the current fourth Hokage then? I can't say I am not too surprised. What? Was it that obvious? Kushina flushed a little. No, well yes, but at the same time no. Obvious to those close to you, but to speculate then to actually have confirmation are two completely different things. Mikoto replied. Alright. Throughout a small amount of time, Mikoto is brought in on the secret, even with its urgent secrecy. However, Mikoto knows she must keep this secret. Sasuke, on the other hand, took this as his opportunity to get his hands on a Hirashin seal, and whilst this small abode is hidden, it had become a temporary home for the fostering family of Kushina, Minato and their soon-to-be-born child. Again, Sasuke is left to his own devices, where it kind of worries Kushina. But seeing as Kushina divulged some rather large secrets, Mikoto gives her own secrets pertaining to the strangeness surrounding Sasuke. His behavior, actions and overall temperament was unlike any other baby she has heard of, or dealt with before. Sasuke, easily enough, discovered the stash of what he believed to be what he is looking for, before easily taking one of the seals and hiding it on his person. After a while, Minato even came back to his abode, which led to some rather interesting discussions, or lack thereof, and instead some intense internal thoughts regarding Sasuke. Sighing, Minato looked towards his wife and his wife's friend, Mikoto. Really? It is my decision, and I have had enough of keeping it from Mikoto. Kushina said, standing firm, also knowing that Minato is most certainly cowed by Kushina. Heh. Shame on you. Sasuke thought to himself, looking smugly at Minato, whom also noticed Sasuke. Why do I get the distinct feeling that baby is looking down on me? Confused, Minato also discovers the baby managed to grab a hold of one of his Hirashin seals. Even more so, he is also a sensor type, meaning he is able to identify that Sasuke has a rather large chakra reserve for a child. In fact, the Uchiha kid seems to have chakra at the same level a graduated academy student would have. This bit of information was stored away for now. Anyway, I would appreciate it if you would keep this secret. Minato politely asked Mikoto. Of course. Mikoto responded, before deciding to leave. I think I should go then. I also assume that this is the last time I will be seeing Kushina before the birth of your child. Correct, and before you go? Yes. Mikoto asked, with confusion on her face. Your daughter seems to have picked up something that she shouldn't have. Daughter? No. His name is Sasuke. Mikoto understands the mistake, given that even Kushina made the same mistake and others had as well. My mistake. Sasuke here seems to have managed to grab a hold of one of my seals. Minato didn't disclose what the seal was, but Mikoto doesn't care about that herself. Oh. Sasuke. Mikoto looks at Sasuke, searching his body, but again, Sasuke pulls out his puppy dog eye technique, using it on Kushina instead of Minato or Mikoto. Mikoto has some form of immunity towards this technique, while Minato would probably not care about such a technique, however. The person with true power in the relationship between Kushina and Minato is Kushina. So, hopefully this should be enough to allow me to keep it. Sasuke again prayed to the gods. Logically speaking, it isn't like Sasuke keeping it would get in Minato's way, harm him or otherwise disclose any secrets to anyone. Let him keep it. Kushina gave in immediately, creating another reason for Sasuke to keep it. Whatever it is, let him have it. But again, to placate Kushina, Minato would allow as such as it truly isn't a big problem at all. The chances of it falling into enemy hands is minimal, and even then there is basically no chance they would discover that it is in fact the infamous seal for the Hirashin technique. I guess it will be fine. Minato complied. Sasuke can keep the thing. I can always make more. I will take my leave then. Mikoto decided to leave, knowing full well that it should be high time she left and returned home. What a mischievous little fellow. Mikoto looked towards her child, as she is escorted by one of the Anbu towards a safe and hidden location, completely allowing Mikoto to find her way home, along with her child. That went easier than I expected. Well, whatever. With this, once I start learning the Fuinjutsu, the sealing techniques, I shall be well on my way to becoming overpowered. Sasuke had a few ideas or ways to make best use of this frankly underappreciated ability. In universe, there was hardly anyone that even practiced the most basic of sealing techniques. It is a little sad the greatest source of knowledge for Fuinjutsu comes from the now destroyed Uzumaki clan. Spending an inordinate amount of time, or perceived as such, Sasuke could only come to terms with his new situation regarding his rebirth. The next steps after that is planning out his future, which includes making use of his knowledge of said future. I don't even know if I am to keep the same Mangekyou Sharingan abilities as the original Sasuke had access to. Amaterasu is certainly powerful, but if there was any combination of abilities that I would like, it would be Kamui and Kotomatsu Kami. Sasuke knew above all else that he should mold himself from this point up until the beginning of Shisui's death so that he would have a chance of at least taking one of his eyes. Or I could try and become friends with Shisui like Itakai did. Options, options, options. There you are. Your mother has some things to do, so you can play by yourself. Mikoto placed Sasuke down, leaving him within his room. The door opened, but with a small barricade to stop Sasuke from leaving the room. Mikoto exited whilst making sure the small fence was fastened properly. Like that could stop me. Maybe. Crawling around the room, Sasuke pulls out the one treasure he had gotten out of this encounter. The Hirashin. Useless right now, and probably for a few years, but once I start learning Fuinjutsu, this will be one of the keys to the secrets of space-time chakra abilities. Sasuke laughed a maniacal laugh. Within Sasuke's room, Mikoto could hear strange noises coming from there. Specifically, it sounded like someone, or more precisely, Sasuke, is laughing. It sounds like he is having fun. If there is one thing that assured Mikoto that she is doing a good job as a mother, is the fact that her child is happy. That is more than enough for her to experience happiness of her own, bringing a small smile to her face as she gets on with doing some basic housewife activities. Strange. These were the only thoughts Kushina had towards her friends, Mikoto's child, Sasuke. Do you know what he took? Kushina's husband, Minato asked Kushina as she sat down, tired due to her pregnancy. No. But it shouldn't be anything of too much importance, right? Kushina didn't believe it would be all that important. Especially since Sasuke is but an innocent baby, with no way of comprehending or understanding most of his actions and their consequences. Deadpanning, Minato replied. It was a Hirashin seal. Really? This surprised Kushina, and when looking back on it maybe she should have at least looked at what he was taking. Yes. Minato nodded his head. It's all right. You don't have to worry about it, as it isn't really a problem at all. Instead, what I am interested about is how a baby manages to get on top of my table, as my seals weren't exactly just laying around on the ground. Minato didn't say anything else, and instead seemed to go into his thoughts as he exited the room they were both in and moved somewhere else. Rubbing her belly, Kushina smiles to herself happily. Kushina was well known for her beauty. She was a fair-skinned and slender woman of feminine build with violet eyes, and the common Uzumaki red hair. Her hair was straight and reached her ankles with shoulder-length strands that framed both sides of her face and a black clip that parts her hair to the left. Born into the famed Uzumaki clan of Uzu Shogakyo, Kushina lived most of her youth being caught up in war, making her seek for a daily peace. At a young age she was sent to Konoha and enrolled in the academy. Wanting to make a strong first impression, she proclaimed to her class that she would be the first female Hokage. The other kids laughed at her statement, and began calling her Tomato because of her then round face and fiery red hair. This prompted her to lash out and pummel the kids who teased her. This, in addition to her red hair flying wildly around her as she did so, earned her the nickname of Red Hot-Blooded Habanero. Kushina was eventually told why she had to leave her home of Uzusho and go to Konoha. Because of her special chakra, she was to be the next Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed demon fox. Kushina was terrified by the idea, but she was comforted by the nine-tails' then current Jinchuriki, Mito Uzumaki. Before the transfer was performed, Mito advised Kushina that love was the only way to tame the nine-tails and overcome its hate. "I wonder what gender you shall be," Kushina said to herself, speaking to her developing child, as she decided she wanted to be surprised by what gender her child is to be. Minato wanted to know, but she otherwise was able to convince him otherwise. "A boy. A girl. No matter, your father and I shall love you all the same." Kushina, still smiling, continued to speak. "I worry, however, what the Kyuubi may try to pull." Because the seal keeping the nine tails within Kushina's body would be at its weakest during childbirth, special arrangements were made. Kushina would leave the village in secret and give birth in a remote location. Minato would help maintain the seal and Anbu would guard the area. Of course, it isn't exactly a proper secret now that Mikoto knows, but she is trustworthy enough. Kushina nodded her head, knowing full well that her friend would help her out. "If you're a girl, maybe you and cute little Sasuke could be more than friends." Kushina giggled to herself at that. Comment. 24 comments. Vote. 1 left. Chapter 4, V.1c.4 October 10th. It was yet another beautiful day, where the sun was high in the sky with but a tarry of clouds floating above. The blue sky carried with it yet the swirling emotions of determination that comes from those that live beneath it in the strange village known as Konohigakyo. Konohigakyo is the hidden village of the Land of Fire. As the village of one of the 5 great Shinobi countries, Konohigakyo has a Hokage as its leader known as the Hokage, of which there have been up to 4 in its current history. Residing deep within a forest at the base of a mountain known as the Hokage Rock, which has the faces of all those who have taken the office of Hokage engraved on it. Surrounded on all sides by enormous walls. While generally seen as the most powerful of the ninja villages, Konoha has enjoyed many years of relative peace and stability. Within the village there are many people, from civilian to contracted killers, or whatever else a ninja may become once accepting a mission. The standard attire for Konoha Shinobi consists of blue or black shirts which may or may not have swirl patterns on the shoulders, along with matching colored pants under a green flak jacket which also has a red swirl on the back, and pockets on the chest area. They also tend to wrap bandages around their legs. Many Konohigakyo ninja use fire release techniques. Within the village there are many powerful and well-respected clans. Of these there are 4 clans which are regarded as noble clans. These are the Aburam, Akimichi, Hyuga and Uchiha clans, the latter of which is regarded as the most powerful clan in the village. Then there are many more clans after that. The population of Konoha is massive, so massive in fact that one should start to consider a budding city of its own. Its militaristic might, unfortunately, is only about average even if acclaimed to be the best of the best hidden villages. Then the economics of the village is even worse, not even at an average level. Meaning that Konoha is probably at this point one of the weakest villages when it comes to wealth. Despite all of this, it is a place many like to call home. Where many would gladly lay their lives on the line for the village, if not do more. The Shinobi world is darker than what is portrayed to people, where death is commonplace. Obviously, there is also propaganda to get people hyped about joining a hidden village's forces, going so far as to have a whole education system in place to subtly bring children in line. Hidden villages are parts of countries in which the country's ninja reside. Their heads stand equally with the landlords ruling the countries they are a part of. A hidden village maintains its economy by training its citizens to be ninja from a young age and using them as manpower in various missions others would be willing to pay for, from weeding a garden for a single payment to receiving a constant budget from the country it resides in for being soldiers in case the country is involved in a war. For Konoha, this would mean that their below-average economy is the result of their ninjas not being able to complete missions, being underpaid, having a significant amount of expenditure, not having enough ninjas for jobs, despite their population or any other reason one may come up with. Anyway, today just so happened to be October the 10th, and some special event is going to take place. The Third Shinobi War had finally settled down, and peace had returned to the lands across the globe, as the ninja go back to their homes and reconnect with their families. Night, where the moon comes out of hiding to reflect the light of the sun upon the world. In an undisclosed location, a scream could be heard, muffled as it was still loud enough to be slightly heard from the outside. It hurts, you know. The voice of a woman, as she seems to be in distress, some level of pain and discomfort. With a worried face, the visage of Minato Namikaze, fourth Hokage, stood within another room, awaiting his wife and their soon-to-be-born child. I've never seen Kushina in so much pain. Kushina Uzumaki lay there, as she is joined by two other women alongside her husband, Minato. She's all right. Never mind that. Just stay focused on the Kyuubi's seal. The voice of Biwako Sarutabi was there, as she along with another, younger woman were considered with the process of helping Kushina bear with the birthing process. You're the fourth Hokage. Act like one. Biwako berated Minato a bit, but it is only natural for him to have some fear regarding this process. Given that the act of childbirth is a dangerous one, even for strong and healthy individuals in a time where technology is good enough to increase survival rates of both mother and child. Not to mention the magic that is chakra, but that should be discussed for another time. Women are strong, let alone Kushina. So do not worry, and just focus on your task. Biwako redirected Minato's focus onto the tattoo on Kushina's enlarged belly. A tattoo that isn't a tattoo but a special seal made to house a beast of immense power. The Kyuubi. Just as Kushina is struggling herself, so too is Minato as he keeps a close eye on the seal for the Kyuubi. The Nine Tails is struggling to get out. Minato thought as he watched the seal vigilantly. His face scrounged up in concentration. Hang in there, Kushina. Minato thought inwardly. Hand in there, my child. He also said this aloud, thinking this encouragement may help his child as well. Outside of the room, a quick battle was taking place between Samandu and another individual with a mask, and a long black robe covering their entire form. The masked individual easily was able to deal with the guards, dispatching of them left, right and center. Upon their final kill, the masked individual makes their way into another direction, directly phasing themselves into a wall, disappearing from view. I can see the head. You're almost there, Kushina. Biwako exclaimed, encouraging Kushina some more. Everyone within the room is struggling, not only the expectant mother but also Minato, trying his hardest to supply Kushina's seal to keep the Kyuubi at bay. Hurry up and cone out. He exclaimed himself, as everyone had sweat dripping off of their faces due to the urgency of the situation. The Kyuubi and the seal for the Kyuubi made this process all the more harder. Soon enough, the cries of a baby is heard, whereupon everyone could now start to relax a bit. Biwako called out. Hot water. Right. The other young woman replied, helping the process along. It would be some time later that the child is washed off properly, and taken care of at least to the bare minimum before being brought to the expectant parents. Naruto. Minato exclaimed, thinking his child is in fact a boy. Going up to Biwako, whom is holding the babe within her arms, sidesteps Minato's approach. No touching. The first face the child should see is their mother's. Biwako again berates the father, adamant in her belief, even though it shouldn't really matter. Minato still takes a step back, not knowing any better, and instead trusts his child in the hands of an older, more experienced individual. Wait. Biwako isn't telling me their gender. Minato, like a deer in headlights, finally catches on to what Biwako just said. Is Naruto not a he? Minato asked, following behind Biwako and her assistant. It would seem you wanted something else. Biwako asked, one of her eyebrows pointing to the ceiling. No. Of course not. I was just surprised, that is all. Minato quickly recovered, and remembered that there was no guarantee that his child would be a boy. Well, I guess it is Naruto then. Minato smiled, if only for a brief moment due to some level of joy he felt for his firstborn child. It's a boy. Biwako explained as she re-entered the room. Kushina was left in to rest for a bit, before bringing Naruto close to her face. Naruto. Kushina's face lights up at the face of her son, whereas Naruto is still making a lot of noise. It's nice to meet you. Kushina looked as if she was about ready to cry. Tears of joy, that is. There. Biwako tried to calm the newborn, leaving Minato behind to take care of Kushina, or more precisely to take care of the Kyuubi problem that lay exactly where Kushina is. Elsewhere, a mother and her 2 children were seemingly out for a walk at night time. The streets bustling, despite being night time with the moon high in the sky, as the people had to do a whole manner of things. Again, Konoha is not the most well-off village, and with its high population, there was a large amount of people that needed to do multiple jobs to help pay for a multitude of things. From the shelter over their heads, the food they eat and the water they drink. Why exactly are we out in the middle of the night again? Sasuke thought to himself from his mother's bosom. In fact, this different from what would have originally happened, where Itachi would be looking after Sasuke by himself at home. However, due to Sasuke's behavior and development, Mikoto had taken it upon herself to include Sasuke more and more on her outings out of home. Especially since she had caught him walking by himself, as he had been hard at work, determined to make sure he can wean himself off of being cared for by others. It is rather annoying after all, but I should have taken into account the training Mikoto had, as that was exactly what got me caught. Mikoto, Sasuke's mother, was after all a ninja herself. So it should be expected that he was found out, unknowingly, but it didn't really do much other to start to have Mikoto keeping an even closer eye on him now. If before he had to work towards getting more time to himself, now Mikoto has started to restrict that freedom more due to this incident. To go out on a night like this as well. Sasuke thought to himself, having gotten used to the language, or at least when it comes to understanding the spoken form, with minimal knowledge of the written form to help him out. Doesn't matter too much right now anyway, given all I need is some basic knowledge to be able to understand the date. October the 10th. The day the Kyuubi is unleashed, and the day of Naruto's birth. Sasuke wondered. I do wonder if when the Kyuubi is unleashed, would I be able to sense the so-called bloodlust or killing intent of the 9 tails. The full moon was out to shine on this night, to mark the momentous event that would further shape the events of the future. I wonder, is Kaguya really trapped up there in the moon? I must admit, it is quite beautiful. Sasuke gazed into the sky, as Itachi held a lightly smiling face, for he has not started the path of separating himself from the Uchiha just yet. Mikoto seemed to be interested in some of the night stalls. For the village people, civilians had to find another way to make a living if they are not to be or become ninja. This looks quite nice. Yes, mother. Itachi just nodded along to everything Mikoto said and continued with her small stroll, just so happening to pick up a treat for Itachi to eat. Thank you. Itachi, ever the little, quick kid and well-mannered, said to Mikoto. You're welcome. Mikoto had a small smile on her face, before starting to head in another direction. We should head back now. Something in the air started to pick up, as if a massive undercurrent was starting to build up into something more. Itachi, surprised for a second, instinctively moved his eyes towards Sasuke, whilst Mikoto held Sasuke and Itachi closer to herself. Well, it would seem that is going to be a windy night. Creator's thoughts. Link_ID. I both liked and disliked the idea of Naruto instead of Naruto. So I am going to just go with Naruto, as I don't need to change just to have another girl. Really unneeded for the story. Comment. 23 comments. Vote. 1 left. Chapter 5, V.1C.5 October 10th 2. Thank you. Minato said as he gazed down towards his exhausted wife. His blonde hair, blue-eyed self gazing kindly at his significant other. Minato. Kushina only said his name back, her eyes red with exhaustion. News of Kushina's pregnancy was kept a secret from the general population, and the delivery itself would take place in a remote cave away from the village. Minato's predecessor, Hiruzen Sarutobi, organized security. The site would be protected by a barrier, several Anbu would guard the area. While another Anbu and Hiruzen's wife, Biwako Sarutobi, would be the midwives. Minato on the other hand would monitor the seal, keeping it stable during the delivery and restoring it to its original strength as soon as their son was born. Now that the birthing process is done, Minato has to get to work on helping repair and suppress the seal on Kushina. But I'll do my best to suppress the Kyuubi. Minato's voice is heard, as he focuses his attention on Kushina's abdomen, where the seal is located. Placing his hands down, he begins, but not before being interrupted. A scream is heard, as Biwako and the Biwako's Anbu assistant fall to the ground. Dead. A man shows up before Minato, who turns towards the intruder. Lady Biwako. Teiji. Minato called, seeing the two of the easily fall to the ground, defenseless and now dead. The unknown assailant lifted his hand above the sleeping form of Naruto. Is he? Minato prepared himself, ready for action, to prevent anything bad from happening. Step away from the Jinchuriki. The masked man said calmly. Otherwise, this boy's life will have lasted less than 1 minute. Who the hell is he? Minato thought to himself, whilst Kushina is currently struggling with the Kyuubi's seal as markings started to spread throughout her form. I told you to stay away from the Jinchuriki. The masked man vocalized once again. Don't you care about your child? Taunting, the masked individual continues. Wait. Calm down. Minato motioned towards the masked man, but he cared not. I'm as calm as can be. The masked man threw neonate Naruto into the air. Naruto! Kushina exclaimed, aware of the danger of the situation. The masked man, whilst Naruto is in the air, jumps up and goes in for the kill or what seemed to be something like that, but is intercepted by Minato. You really are the yellow flash. But what about this? The masked man said. In the next few moments, Minato extracts Naruto and sees that there are some explosive seals on her current wrapping, leading to him teleporting away and into a safe house with no one within. Minato quickly dispatches of the explosive seal, it explodes and he safely, or as safely as he could, lands with Naruto unharmed. Good, Naruto's not hurt. Minato had unfortunately been harmed during this little conflict, leading to him having something pierced into his ankle. I had to resort to my Hiraishin already. He's after Kushina. Minato would then proceed to get Naruto to safety, before he would turn his attention to saving Kushina once again. Now outside of the cave, the masked man had trapped and placed Kushina in another area, perfectly secured for him to move on with his plans. The Kyuubi is released, and now under the control of the masked man, whilst deciding to put an end to Kushina, but in fact she does not die. Believing he had completed his job, the masked individual left to cause some destruction, for whatever reason that may be. Kushina is whisked away to safety, and placed next to Naruto, where Minato is now going to deal with the Kyuubi and the masked individual. Rejoining the mother and her 2 children, that being Mikoto, along with her eldest son, Itakai, and her baby boy, Sasuke. The moon seems ominous. Itakai thought to himself as the trio arrived back at their home, where Mikoto had taken Sasuke to his room for sleep. Sasuke himself however would not be getting any sleep this night, and it wouldn't even be because he wants to stay awake himself. No, it would all be thanks to the Kyuubi itself. Whilst this is going on, with Sasuke secured within his room, or supposed secured, Mikoto sensed something shift within the air. The same happened for Itakai as well, which leads to the both of them to start taking a look outside of their home within the Uchiha compound. Mother? Itakai asked, as it would seem that Mikoto had discovered some sort of discrepancy as well. Hurry up and go find your little brother. Something is not right. Mikoto is however interrupted, for a grand explosion causes a massive earthquake, leading to many things falling, breaking or come to a state of ruin. Itakai turns and heads directly towards Sasuke's room, and Mikoto knows full well that Itakai has the capabilities to keep Sasuke safe for a bit. Instead, she turns her attention towards a particular location instead, hoping everything is fine for her friend. Itakai comes back out, and Mikoto notices that they are probably fine to stay here and most of the destruction taking place is in the opposite direction of their home. You should stay here with Sasuke, Itakai. I am going to find out what is going on, and if things seem to be getting worse, it is only then that you may go and find an even safer place to stay. Mikoto entrusts the safety of her youngest son to her eldest, worried, but she needs to find out more information before she can make any more decisions. Especially since it would seem that Fugaku is nowhere to be seen. Damn it. Fugaku is on a mission right now. After all, Fugaku is still an enlisted part of the Konoha Shinobi, at least for now. Fire, destruction, ruin and the wind picking up as the Kyuubi is now released unto the world. For Sasuke, being held by Itachi, whilst annoying, is probably one of the safest spots for him to be right now. Little brother. We will be staying here for a small amount of time. When mother comes back, then we may be going somewhere else. Itachi assured Sasuke. Sasuke on the other hand felt something stirring deep within himself. A sense of dread, or fear, or anything else resembling that. Itachi at this point didn't continue to hold Sasuke, and instead placed him back within his room, where he is probably at his safest for now. Given that Kyuubi is on the other side, Sasuke should be safe here for now, especially with Itachi watching over him. Rejoining Minato, whom is now facing off against the masked individual, as the Kyuubi rages in the background, fighting against the Shinobi whom have decided to stand up against the strongest of the tailed beasts. My attack passed right through him. Minato thought to himself, as he gets up from the ground, now donning his fourth Hokage cloak. But a moment later, he materialized himself fully and tried to pull me against himself. What was that technique? Appearing from thin air, the masked individual makes himself known, coming through his own special space-time technique. I won't let you get away. The masked individual said. He uses a teleportation technique as well. Minato was having his own internal thoughts, taking down and recording to himself everything he encounters. After all, analyzing the capabilities of his opponent would make it easier for him to defeat the man. Is that how he took Kushina and moved away so quickly? Minato now has gotten up from his downed position, ready to take action against his new opponent. A Shinobi who outmaneuvered the Anbu assigned under Lord Third's direct control, who slipped through a top-secret barrier, and who knew that the nine-tail seal would weaken during childbirth. Furthermore, he undid the Kyuubi's seal, tamed it and went in and out of the barrier set up by the hidden leaf without being caught. I know of only one Shinobi capable of this. Are you Madara Uchiha? Minato spoke after his internal conclusion. No, that's impossible. He's dead. Minato added. I wonder about that. The masked man had taken his hood off, but left the mask on while replying. At this point, it doesn't matter who you are. But why are you targeting the hidden leaf? I could say that I did it on a whim, or that I planned it, or that it's war, or that it's for peace. After a small skirmish between the two men, it comes to Minato defeating the masked man where the Kyuubi is now released from the man's control. On the other hand, the masked man despite this, seemed nonchalant about the situation. I must hand it to the fourth Hokage. You wounded me and managed to pull out the Kyuubi. But the Kyuubi will be mine eventually. I am going to rule the world. The masked man activated his teleportation technique, allowing him to escape. And there are so many ways to go about doing that. With those parting words, the man is gone. The Kyuubi, now free, did not stop its attack and instead started to go against the ninja below its gigantic form instead. Its hate would not be diminished, even if it was controlled, as without it will still continue to go against the entirety of those who are considered taints to its father's legacy. Even then, it would still go after them, for imprisoning for years, where it is lonely, berated, hated itself, for a very, very long time. From above, as the Kyuubi charges up an attack, Minato atop his summon stops this from happening. Remembering the masked man's words, Minato thinks to himself. Kushina, forgive me. Hold down the nine tails for just a while. Minato called out towards his summon, Gamabunta. Gamabunta responded. That's going to be tough, even for me. In order to transport something this big, I'll need just as much chakra. The people on the ground were ready to face off against the beast, but it disappeared, along with Minato. An explosion rocks another area, and zooming in on the area far from the hidden leaf village, Minato appears with two bundles within his arms, alongside Kushina and the Kyuubi whom flanks his back. What the hell am I doing here? were the thoughts of one of the bundles Minato is currently holding. I must put up a barrier immediately. Minato says, as Kushina is right beside him. My chakra is almost. I can still do it, Minato. Kushina's weak voice spoke up, as she then proceeded to use her clan's secret technique to chain down the Kyuubi in place. Kushina! Minato exclaimed, awakening the small blonde-haired babe next to the black-haired one. What am I doing here? It was Sasuke whose thoughts were calling out, but he didn't voice himself, instead taking in his surroundings. Seriously? Did I wake you? Wait. Minato, is that? Kushina spoke, but she became aware of the extra child within his arms. Yes. You must preserve your chakra as much as you can, so that you can live and help raise Naruto. Minato said, not bothering to explain himself much here and why he has Sasuke. Internally, however, Minato thought to himself. I will give up my own life to seal half of the Kyuubi into Naruto and then the other half into Sasuke. Forgive me, Mikoto, but I could sense the potential within your child to withhold the Nine Tails chakra, just as Naruto has that potential as well. Sasuke, this child, along with Naruto, both have the potential to become Jinchurikis for the Kyuubi. Minato stated. But Minato, you can't. I can. And I will, for Konoha, and the people, I will. We can't do that to little Sasuke, and what about? We have no time to argue. We must do this here and now. Minato had already resolved himself now, having already decided on this. Having seen Sasuke when he did a month ago, he didn't think much of it then, but now. Now, Sasuke will have to bear with it, along with my son. Kushina appeared conflicted, but didn't even have the strength to do anything other than what she is doing now. The conversation between Kushina and Minato kind of followed its original situation, where Kushina said she will give her life to seal and kill the Kyuubi. Minato then said no, instead stating some bullshit reason that included not upsetting the balance when it comes to the tailed beasts. All the while, Sasuke, fully conscious and aware of the situation, couldn't help himself in this moment but grow a grudge against the man known as the Fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze. What an idiot! Sasuke thought to himself. Well, an idiot to not even realize the indoctrination he has gone through. Going through some hand signs, Minato calls out. Reaper Death Seal.